and welcome to the Human Design and Astro Club podcast. I'm Krystle, and I have a very special guest in series. I have no idea which portion this episode will drop, but this series is going to be on each of the human design types and each type's personal experience. So today I have a very special guest, and I'll let you know her type in just a moment. So her name is Krystle Sheriff, and she is a human design analyst, astrocartographer, and God seeker. Currently, her life's work is making intuitive knowledge practical and accessible. So let's break down the design, and then I'm gonna pass the mic over to you, Krystle. We have two Krystles here. We spell our names very different, which there's 5 million ways to spell Krystle. I learned at a very young age. So Krystle is a 6'2" splenic projector. Okay, so we're gonna learn about what does it mean to be a projector and kind of like how Krystle kind of found human design. I feel like people's human design stories and kind of what draws people in is super fascinating to me. So I wanted to kind of see how each type kind of lived their experience. So we're going to dive into a few different places. But before I start with my questions, I want to introduce you to my audience. So everybody, welcome Krystle. Krystle, let everybody know a little bit about yourself. You want to tell us your big three?
I am a Cancer sun, an Aquarius moon, and a Virgo rising.
Nice.
So quite the hodgepodge.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
feel like we were all drunk when we chose our designs and also astrology.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's like there's like this, I call it the game of ancient forgetting and ancient remembering.
Mhm.
And so I feel like the time before us was like, I would never choose that. And then, we fall into whatever the abyss is. And then we do this ancient forgetting. And then we come back and we're like, yeah, I'll choose that. That sounds great. And it's like, we're just all kind of
But we
stuck.
forget the moment we're born. And it's about
Exactly.
actually Kabbalah. I used to actually work
Mm-hmm.
at the Kabbalah Center, and they explained this whole process to me. And like I feel like that's exactly what happened. That we
Yeah.
basically are born and we have like amnesia. And the
Mm-hmm.
Kabbalah tree of life is actually called the ladder to ascension. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's about climbing back up to the heart, which is our G center, which is actually what's
Mm-hmm.
providing our direction around this material plane through the magnetic monopole, right? And
Yeah.
so in Kabbalah, that center is called Teferet, and it means beauty. And at
Mm.
the core of love is beauty.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so it's about remembering that we are actually all just pieces of that one whole. That's like the entire purpose of this
Mm-hmm.
human experience. And so some of us remember and some of us don't.
And even when we remember, we forget. That's what
Yeah.
I
We
always tell
don't we
people.
don't know
Like,
the fullness because we are just
yeah,
like fragments of the whole.
yeah. And like, even remembering and forgetting isn't linear. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think in like real time, we will go through a phase and move through a shadow, move through a pattern. And we're like, oh, okay, I've gotten a handle on this. And we'll forget the next time we're triggered, and it's like, oh, dang, I just learned that. It's like a continuous game of like, obviously on a macro level, but even in our micro level, I feel like we're just moving through the things and trying to keep these fragments together. But I don't think that's the point.
No.
The more I think about it. Yeah.
The point
So
is
it's
just the
interesting.
experience.
The
That's
being, yeah. Somebody said something really beautiful. They were like, basically, we're on vacation.
mm,
And like
this is
we,
vacation. Okay.
yeah, we
What
have
I want to know what
incarnated.
their profile is, where they're not a third line if they're or a sixth line
I
if they're on
actually,
vacation.
no, he was a 2-4.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
So
he
he
was a
can be
two
a little
four.
more on vacation then, I guess.
Yeah. And he kind of painted as like, oh, we've come into these bodies and all of a sudden we have all of our senses. So
Hmm.
we can feel pleasure just as much as we can feel pain. We can see beauty just as much as we can see ugliness. But like when we're, spirit form, you don't have a
Well, it's
physical body.
neutral. Well, it's neutral.
Yeah, exactly. There's no duality. And that's how we sort of discern beauty, I think, is by having duality. And that's how we kind of discern love by like experiencing hate. So it's like, yeah,
But it's
without that
all love
duality, you
at
wouldn't
the
be able
core.
to. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah,
Even ugliness and hate at the very
right,
bottom is
right.
love.
It is. It is. But it's our little vacation.
I'm a
So
vessel of love though, so I'm always gonna bring it
it's
back
like
to
it's
that.
always love,
It is.
100%. But yeah, no, I agree. It's just I just thought that was a beautiful way because I feel like so many people sort of paint life as like, even when I first said it's like, oh, they're on a vacation, like, and just his entire view, I was like, never thought about it like, yeah, these senses are
I think we
temporary.
should live that way though. We should live
Yeah,
like we're
like we're
on
on
vacation,
vacation.
which
It's
I
like,
know is kind of a
wow.
luxury thing to say. I'm
Yeah.
also Taurus North Node, so I feel like that's kind of like life goal. Um,
I respect that. I respect
and
that.
I did it. I did. I used to vacation here. I used to go to Maggie Valley.
Oh, okay.
And
Sweet.
I came here in 2017 for that eclipse
Mm-hmm.
because this was one of the most visible areas
Yeah.
during
I mean,
that
it's
time. And
Appalachia.
I walked through a portal that day.
Oh, yeah. The Appalachia. So it's funny. I don't know if you're going to tell people, but
Okay, yeah.
my hometown is where Krystle now lives.
Mm,
And
mm,
yeah, I moved there when I was 10. My family moved
mm,
there post 9/11.
mm.
Um, and yeah, I spent what I call my formative years there. And so I think it's just like such a sweet little synchronicity
Yeah, that
that
was
you
accidentally on
live there
purpose.
and I'm from there. And yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
that's kind of
it's such a small place to
it
like
is.
randomly see somebody's like,
But that's how I know I chose right though, because
mm,
you guys know, I put out a form a while back. A lot of actually, I'm going to say this on here because I think every
yeah.
projector needs to hear this. The most, can you guess? Or maybe I just gave it away. The type that
She's like, oh, can you guess projectors? Can you
yeah, the type that most filled out the form was the projector.
mm-hmm.
And that actually made me when I saw that a little sad.
Mm,
Um, just because it made me realize how many projectors are looking to be seen and they are not getting the recognition that they deserve. Like I feel like there's
mm,
so many out there that are wanting to share their story and their experience and like it's like I wanted to bring like all the projectors on.
mm-hmm.
But I can only pick one. Actually, I might have picked slightly two because one of my clients filled it out and I want her to, and she's like really brought in the variables to her life. So I might pick her as well for something else.
Yeah.
But I I thought it was just interesting how many projectors wanted to be seen and just
Mm,
feeling like a bunch of them they weren't getting the recognition that they deserved. And I don't think any projector, especially at the beginning, because a bunch of them were at the big, I asked how many years you've been because I was just curious as to where people
mm-hmm.
are on their human design journey. And I'm just like, I feel like the projector does not get the recognition that they deserve. And like everybody like wants to be seen. So that's why they want to come on and share their story.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I think projectors issue in being seen for me, I think becomes even more of a thing because I have my two, right? And so naturally I want to hermit and I'm a fresh roofer. And
Mhm.
so there's like a lot of wanting to go in, especially with the sixth line and just running through the 30 years of that three. Like we are just not naturally threes. So that
Mm.
type of push and all of those wounds, we're just not as resilient. So it's like I need time to actually like lick my wounds. And
Mm.
so, but at the same time, like, the time that we go on the roof is societally the time when you start to step up in your career and you start to make a stance. It's like, this is who I want to be. And you need to be seen for that. So, and network, your network is your net worth. I know all my fours know that. So like, yeah, I think it's a hard time for projectors, but especially me, I can feel myself like equally battling. And I have so many like friends around. They're like, you need to post this, you need to show this,
Mhm,
you need to do
mhm.
this, you need
Well,
to do
right.
that, right?
And so
And they're like
somebody gives you
responding
an
to my two.
opportunity, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think that's kind of what happened is a lot of projectors are like, I want to be seen right now. And
Yeah.
I have a wide open throat.
Mm-hmm.
No fucking gates, guys. I got nothing. Okay. I'm like, all the routes that lead there, I couldn't get one gate. No. But the gift of that is that I see people for exactly who they are. And I believe every single person on this planet deserves to be seen. I have
Mm-hmm.
said, and all the projectors can roll their eyes at me, it's fine. But I have said that having an open or undefined throat is kind of like the undercover projector because they need to be
Mm.
recognized to also speak and to share. They have to be
Yeah.
recognized first. And so I think that's why I relate to a lot of projectors because I understand what it means to never feel seen, to never feel
Mm-hmm.
recognized.
Mm-hmm.
And
And I
so,
think
yeah.
for projectors though, I think even from my own personal journey, I interestingly, I don't feel like I struggle to be seen. If anything, I think I struggle with being perceived. Like
Mm,
I I'm like, oh please, like I just want to hermit a lot of times, you know, but so much of my work is like transpersonal. Like I'm here to like really engage with the other and to see deep into the other. And but I wasn't, and so now I don't struggle to be seen. However, that took me finding the self-worth and
yes.
recognizing who I am. And once I did that, everything else just sort of flowed. I think the second part for projectors is realizing that they're really the driver. Like, once they're invited, they're the driver, they're the leader. And
Yes.
most projectors I
Well,
know
you also aren't here
struggle.
to be a leader, you're desire motivation. So I think that
Yeah. Yeah.
there's actually a nice tie-in with projectors now taking on the new leadership role after 2027 and then you being desire
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
motivation and your trajectory is actually to be a leader. And so
Yeah, for
there's a
sure.
nice harmony and synergy in that. And
Mm-hmm.
now especially that you really you don't start to walk that path until after your Saturn return. A lot of people don't know about this, but your motivation doesn't really start to kick in until after your Saturn return, but you're just beginning the walk. You don't actually take the
Mm-hmm.
seat of your motivation until after your Chiron return. That's a whole other
Okay, yeah.
conversation.
That's a whole
But
thing. I mean, I'm
yeah.
into the Chiron return. Well, yeah, that's also 50. So I get
Mhm.
that. Like that's when you
Yeah.
come off the roof.
But
Um,
not just for six lines. This is for all individuals that because
oh, interesting. Okay.
that's a time. Yes, you're going to come off the roof during that time as well, but it's a very monumental moment
For
for everybody
yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's if you think of that in relation to the
Mm-hmm.
sixth line, it's when you truly get to become the role model. So it's almost like taking the
Oh.
seat of your outer authority for every
Mm-hmm.
during that time.
Yeah. It's interesting. I actually just gave an astrology reading, or I guess I do like esoteric weavings. So I
Hmm.
kind of factor in numerology, astrology, and human
Nice.
design. And yeah, she had just had her her Chiron return not too long ago. And it really put it on my radar in a serious way because she had her Chiron return. Transiting her first house. It's so Chiron
Mm,
natally is there and having that return and just seeing the way I mean, really affected her identity and
yeah.
her body. It was such a pivotal time, and she's fine now, but it was such a pivotal time, and I was thinking about myself as a six and
Yeah.
doing the whole thing. But then I was just recently reading how like it's up to sixes. Essentially, sixes are here to teach us the to kind of show the way,
Mm,
because while this is the sixes way of being, 33 line, and then you go up on the roof and then you come down. Really, that's the way of all nine centered beings.
mm, mhm.
That's the role that we're all following, and we're just sort of here to role model like what
Well,
essentially
it's
we're
the
all here to
future.
do.
The
Yeah,
sixth is the
exactly.
future.
So exactly. And I was like, oh, that's like, yeah, it was just really, that's like the best thing about giving readings, I feel like, is you just, as deeply as you look into the other, you start to look into yourself.
Mm. Well, for
And
you as a
yeah,
projector, that's all it's about.
exactly.
That's the only way you see the world.
I
And,
know.
and that's
Yeah.
why it's imperative for projectors to pay attention to the company that they keep. I can't stress that enough.
Yes, the projector and the undefined G center. Oh my
And
God.
oh, and then when you put that
You
together,
put them together, then you
you
got
got
me an
extra. That's an extra
extra
mission for you. It's
light. Oh yeah.
imperative that you pay attention to that as you have a undefined G center.
Super. Yeah, I only have
Yeah,
that
only
13.
one hanging 13, which I have
Yeah.
13, by the way. I
I
actually
know. I love listening.
I give you G center definition because I have the 25 and
Oh, sweet.
I also have the 15 and I also have the 10.
Okay. Well, look at that. Yeah,
I
I need that. It's interesting. I feel like personally, like outside of the pressure centers, I feel like not having your G center defined is
Oh, it's on the
it's a
hierarchy of deep conditioning. I think it's like the third one potentially, or the
yeah, it's
I think
intense.
it's ego, then G center. I can't remember off the top of my head right now the
Yeah,
hierarchy, but it's in the top three for
it's intense.
most conditioned, and I think can honestly be because of that hierarchy the most challenging. To like, 'cause if
Hmm.
you think about that in relation to the first one being the ego, because the majority of
Which
the
also, yeah.
population are open there. Not to take my
Hmm.
shots at my open egos. I get a little, I get a little pushy. I guess you could say when I with the I guess where we're defined, we don't have patience for the openness. And because
Hmm.
the majority are open there, it's I'm just like, what do you guys actually want? What do you want?
Hmm.
And the answer
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
it's not just one thing. And it's not an easy question for you guys to really answer. And then especially then if you have both places open, having the G center and then also the heart ego, then it's like
Hmm.
this extra like desire really to find that path, find that lovability, find that will,
That value, yeah,
find that
value within
value
self.
in both. I mean, look at it. 15 to
Yeah,
25 is the bridge between.
yeah, and I think additionally being then you start to look at also projectors, like they can't really step into their light until they like see the worth within themselves, and then you factor in the fact that I'm just a Cancer, right? And we have this innate vulnerability within us,
Mhm.
and
You're all squishy.
sometimes, yeah, and like an insecurity that's just like naturally there, and so yeah, it's a long road.
Yeah.
I'm having a time at it. Life's coming
Yeah.
at me
You're
fast.
you seem like you're doing pretty good though. I mean, I only
I
met you
really
just now.
am. I'm okay.
But you seem like you got your shit together, but you're also power view and desire motivation like me. So, if we can be in our true view, really, if we can be in the
Hmm.
right environment, because if we're not in the right environment, you're never going to see clear.
You're done. Yeah.
But you're a mountains and one of my favorite people. I would say, aside from my own kitchen's environment, that my second favorite is mountains
Hmm.
because you guys have this like elevation to yourselves. And
Hmm.
there's nobody else like a mountains person. And like you're almost like untouchable. Because you're the foundation of the upper trigram and it's like reaching you at the top there. You have to be willing to allow other people meet you at the top. I always tell all my mountains clients, you do not go to the bottom of that cave. Okay. You have people come up to your mountain.
Yeah.
You do not climb down from your mountain for nobody. There's an elevated state to every
Hmm.
mountains person.
I believe that. And like along with this, a six line in general, like
Yeah.
I noticed that I have a ton of sixes around me. And I love that because integrity is so important and trust is so important. And I think six lines need other six lines because I think we really understand that. Um, but I love watching them because I'm like, wow, look how like regal. It's just something like very noble and regal about a six line, and you can see it. They're obviously sort
Oh,
of
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I love that. So yeah, I think that really resonates with like the mountains as well. I've always
Yeah.
been
Well,
interested though, on a completely different note, about the like symbiotic relationship between 6-2s and 3-5s as well. I'm
hmm,
like, oh, that's so
hmm.
interesting. And then 5-1s too. Anyways, those are just like tidbits in my brain that are on the tip of the tongue. But
Yeah. Well, I think there's a harmony between the five and in the second line with
the
the
projections.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like
And
I
with the
recently,
harmonic.
go ahead.
So because the two is the harmonic of the five. And
Mm-hmm,
the
mm-hmm.
one to the four, the three to the six. So
Right.
you're automatically going to resonate to the opposite end. You're going to attract a lot of this likeness, and then you're going to attract the harmonic.
Right.
That.
And I recently read about how for 5-1s specifically, the relationship they share with 6-2s can be
Hmm.
either a saving grace or the reverse of that, and allow them to be burned at the stake. And
Hmm.
I thought that was super interesting because my mom is a 5-1
Oh, really?
and my best friend. Yeah. And so yeah, when I was reading about, obviously a 5-1's reputation is everything. And it said just like an innocent, like cosign from a 6-2 can really be a saving grace. But in the reverse, it can also have them burnt at the stake. And I was like, wow, talk about soul contracts. But
Yeah, I think
yeah.
the fifth line, that's you got one or the other. You're the
Like,
you're
talk
the
about,
villain or you're the hero.
I
There's no in
know.
between with
I know. I
our
feel
little
for
fifth
that.
lines. Yeah.
I feel for that. I do. Yeah.
But when they are the hero though, like
They
that
shine.
it is like it they outshine all the other lines
Mm,
when they're the hero.
100%. When I first started learning about human design, I like you could just tell by the way people talk about fives. I was like, ooh, okay, this is the Gemini Scorpio
Oh
of like
yeah.
human design.
Yeah. I
Geminis and
see that.
Scorpios in astrology are like so
Like
polarizing.
nobody wants to get near them, but then at the
It's
same
either you
time
want it or
they're so alluring, and that's the
yeah,
energy of
exactly.
the fifth
The
line.
five. Yeah. And I was like, oh, okay, we found our provocateurs,
They
Yeah, I
are.
was like,
They're very.
okay. Yeah, I was like, we found it. Yeah, that was like my immediate thought when I first found out
Yeah, my
about fifth
brother's a
lines.
3-5 emotional generator, and yeah, he really is the villain and the hero. It's weird. I used to when I was a kid,
Mm.
he's a couple years older than me. I would think that if and I don't know why I ever thought this, but I guess it was just the fifth line projection. But I'm like, if anybody ever messed with me, my brother would come for them.
I mean, yeah, that's that.
He is the fifth line, and he would
Hmm.
take care of his little sister.
Yeah, I know a few. I know a 3-5 generator. They're like 8 center defined, only one open, the solar
Oh, that's
plexus.
intense.
Yeah, and they're like intent. Look, you took it off my mouth and just put it on yours. So
That's one
intense.
word.
Also a
Yeah.
fire sign.
Oh. Mhm.
Yeah, Leo. And yeah,
Oh.
it's a whole thing. I'm like, you're an intense human. You got a lot going on.
Yeah. I
And
like when I get to see that though and like why. Because that's what human design really explains is why are you
yeah,
the way you are?
why? And
Yeah.
then in the relationship in general, we make a 9 and 0, nowhere to
Mhm.
go. And so yeah, we're just like
You
bouncing
enjoy
off
each
of this
other's company. Those 9-0s. Like just you guys are
or
in
something like that.
your
In your
own
own
little world.
world. I
I
know.
do
I
that
think
with my youngest. I'm a 9-0.
aw.
And my husband's been out of town. And like, it's weird because he was born right before the pandemic, my youngest.
Hmm.
And so my husband started working from home shortly after that. So we're always together. This is like the first time in a really long time that he is not here. Like it, and like the
Hmm.
pentaforce is so real.
Yeah.
You start
Yeah.
meshing all the auras together. But like my oldest
Mm.
was at school today, and so it was just me and him, and it was just like such chill vibes. But my husband,
Oh.
he's the six to my 59. And so he just like brings the chaos and the friction.
When's his birthday?
He's a
Your husband?
Virgo. He's
Oh,
about to be his birthday, actually, the 21st.
okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
And he's all fifth color too. So
Yeah.
They're very,
Oof.
fifth color, very judgmental. Fifth tone is
Yeah.
actually connected to judgment. So
Yeah. And then also that cusp, yeah. That
yeah,
cusp was also very
yeah, he doesn't know
judgmental.
if he's coming or going. I feel like all cusp, like some people don't like cusps. I think because I am a cusp
I was
baby,
gonna say, yeah.
I can speak for us and say that we really are both. And actually, Kabbalistically, if you want to get real weird, Kabbalistically, I am actually a Capricorn.
Well,
So
yeah, and then you have like Vedic as well. And if you
yeah,
were like Vedic or sidereal,
yeah,
like I'm sure
then
you
that changes. We'll go to a
every
whole other tangent if we start talking about that.
do not. I've been studying astrology since I was 16. We can
We can
riff, but
just
we'll
keep
move on.
okay. Yeah. I mean I've been probably about that time too, is when
Yeah.
I used to like back in the day when you didn't have Instagram and all you had were these weird like internet website people that like at like midnight there was this I forget who I used to read, but it was midnight, the horoscope would change for the next day and I would go Googling it so that
I
I could
know.
know what that next day meant for me. That's how crazy
Yeah.
it was.
I mean, honestly, like I used to be so excited for um so Elle magazine, they have these Gemini twins, quite literally, they're twins who are Geminis. And I'm like, that is so wild.
Yeah, I
Anyways,
remember that.
um,
Yes, I
yeah,
remember.
and they've been doing it since I was like 18. And I would just be waiting on the next month, like, it's the first. And me and my friends would like whip it out. And they do a really great job at like tracking. And they've been doing it for, I mean, I'm aging myself, but they've been doing it for a while,
No,
and I'm like,
you're younger than me.
I I know. You know the things. It's all the things. I'm trying, I'm like, I'm still a maiden, please. Anyways, I'm not a mother, not a crone. Um, I'm just like,
Sorry.
it's fine. We can move on.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's go into the questions. We're gonna transition because we're probably gonna go to weird places. We both have the hanging 43. So
So we both have what?
the hanging 43, right? Yeah, you do.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Where is your 43? Your 43. Oh, it's in
Oh
Pluto.
my.
Interesting. That's an interesting
Mm.
placement. Pluto. Pluto in human design.
Pluto.
Pluto in human design.
Pluto. Let's just stick with
It
it.
reveals the truth, the hidden
Yeah.
truth. And it's the truth that you're always searching for.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've gotten into Pluto, my relationship with Pluto, like obviously as a water sign, like there's
mm,
already some
mhm,
symbiotic energy
mhm,
there.
mhm.
I don't know if I love Scorpios or if they're my kryptonite. I think they're one and
Oh,
the same. It's the same coin.
they're not my kryptonite. It's my south node, so it's my karmic debt. And
Mm.
I just I love you. Don't no Scorpios take this the wrong way. You're wonderful people. Really, honestly, an elevated Scorpio. I've met a few, an elevated Scorpio,
Yeah.
the ones that
Hmm.
have shed their scorpion skin and became the
They're
phoenix.
Phoenix. Right.
Those
The
are my
eagle.
those are my people. Those are my people.
Right.
But
Right.
unfortunately, and I'm not saying into any of the Scorpios here, but the majority of the population, we live in the not self. So
True.
that only means that we got whatever. And like, because Scorpios are like so deep, like sometimes they just stay at the bottom of that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's definitely like a subterranean. Am I saying that right? Subterranean
Subterranean.
words, subterranean. Yeah, there's definitely that quality to them. And at the same time, and I feel like they're like, can be either the most charming people or the most like destructive. But all that to say, my co-ruler is Pluto,
Hmm.
Mars, Pluto, however you want to play it. And so, yeah, and there's like, just, and I'm Decan too, because that's what me, Decan too, I have like a Mars, Pluto co-ruler. And yeah, the obsessive kind of like self-destructive, that part of the Cancer that kind of looks like it wants to be a Scorpion, that's where I am. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I get that. I get it. So yeah, I'm not surprised that I'm not surprised that it's in an interesting spot.
Yeah. That's why you like to
Mhm.
talk about weird shit.
I'm I'm the week of the unconventional. I don't know if people have gotten it. That's literally what it's called. But yours is the cusp of prophecy.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah,
actually a very beautiful like name.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Probably why I feel like I was called to do this.
100%.
And I know that
Congratulations for
probably,
heeding the call, for
yeah,
real.
I know that
Hmm.
sounds maybe egoic. Maybe, I don't know. But and I didn't want to answer the call to be honest.
Mm,
I still
mm,
question if
your path.
I'm should be answering this call.
Mm,
I promised my defined heart that I would stay till 2027. Um,
okay.
and I said, we'll see what happens after
We'll
that.
see what happens. Stay
Yeah,
tuned.
because maybe I want to go off grid. I don't know, you know?
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
but I feel like there's something about desire motivation. Oh, let me ask you a question before I ask you
Okay.
my questions, because this
Let
is
me ask you a question
fun.
before I ask you a question.
Yeah, open throat. Um, but okay, because I asked another desire person that came on the podcast, so I want to see what you say too.
Okay.
We're both desire motivation. So if you're like, what in the hell are you talking about?
We're
I
playing chess.
I'm
That's basically what it means.
that yeah. The little more power view part is the playing chess. We know where the chess
Hmm.
pieces are. Desire is the processing of that uh
Hmm.
of that I guess vantage point and also movement because it's part of our
Hmm.
trajectory. But definitely it's the ending stage. It's like after you moved all the chess pieces, then desire tells you where you need to go.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I read that for especially for projectors, and just non-sacral beings in general, but then they were like, but specifically for projectors, if like the way to know, because it's like obviously be recognized and then be invited, but if you're in your bag or if you have a 2 or a 5, like there's so many projections, so it's like, all right, listening to your emotional authority or your splenic authority. And splenic to me just stresses me out all the time, but we're working through it. But she I was listening, it was also like, but if it puts you in your correct motivation, it's like that
Mm.
is also, that's one of those telltale signs that you're in the right spot. And so for me, it's like, okay, if somebody, invites me to something or I apply to something and I immediately start like strategizing and playing chess and like kind of step into this leader role, I'm like, all right, this is it. But if somebody invites me into something and it puts me into my transference and I'm like, oh yeah, it's whatever, we can go with the flow. Like it's fine, it's
Yeah.
fine. I'm like,
Or you
that might
decide.
not be it, girl. That might not be it. So yeah, that felt, as I have so much love and admiration for the way that generators and manifesting generators get to live their lives. That felt like we get a little something. I was like, okay, this is like an extra little cherry on top for like
Oh yeah,
knowing,
that
especially with like splenic. That's a hard one for me. It feels
is
so
oh yeah,
mystical.
I could totally go into that with you about
Yeah, I mean,
the spleen, but that I
yeah,
guess is another time because we're not talking about authority or centers for this. I mean we
no,
can touch on it, but I really want to stick to the projector topic, which I'm going to ask you
yeah.
my projector questions in just a second, but I have to ask this desire question. First, I need to explain to you about my calling as desire motivation for you to fully
Hmm.
understand the question. This is
Sure.
also for my desire people out there, or even my innocence people that want to be desire, because we are more attracted to the opposite. It's
Hmm.
easier. That part speaks louder to us, especially when we're in the not self. I would
Yeah.
love that's why I'm like, maybe I want to go off the grid because the innocence in me doesn't want to be involved. I'm like, I'm preaching to a bunch of not self people. How do you wake those people up?
Hmm.
Might as well just not get involved. But I
Hmm.
know that something's just going to knock me over the head and tell me I have to do it. So it's already happened before. I got hit by a car on my bike. That's a conversation for another time. But when you have a call, you must answer. It's unfortunate sometimes, but you got to try to do it. So in 2020, when everything happened, the world shut down. At the time, I was professionally doing hair and makeup for a living, and I didn't want to touch anybody anymore. And I heard it's time. And I said, time for what? And I was shown by my guides, because I am connected to my guides. Also, just so you know, I don't know if you know this, there's actually entities that are connected to each of the motivations. And so the entity that's connected to desire motivation is spirit. So I also read the Akashic records, and I've been talking to honestly
Yeah.
people for a very long time. So,
Mm-hmm.
and my guides are constantly yapping at me. So, and like they will be very disruptive if I don't listen. So I heard
Mm-hmm.
the call to come online, start sharing human design, and just see what happens, is what they told
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And this is what
100%.
happened.
Well, I
And
love
I
that.
created a
Yeah,
whole
you did
business
it.
out of it
You did.
accidentally on purpose. But I saw during that process that I needed to come and start sharing human design. They were telling
Mm-hmm.
me that it's about us. And like at this time, I didn't even fully understand what desire was, but looking back, I understand now what they meant. And like,
Yeah.
they were talking about ushering people into the new way, like helping them
Mm-hmm.
through. And I saw like the Titanic and like all the
Mm-hmm.
life rafts. And that desire motivation is the person standing on the dock giving everybody life jackets and telling them to get the fuck on the boat. Um,
Mm-hmm.
we got a new place to go. There's a better way.
Right.
We got to get out of
Right.
here. And so I'm just curious if you feel that similar energy as like getting everybody
Of
on the life raft.
getting everybody off. Oh, yeah. I mean, short answer is yes. I think like you said, I think my innocence motivation, I mean,
Transferred.
transference has been very loud,
Mhm.
and has, and especially like growing up, I was such like a hippie, and I was just like, it's about everything. And I guess I still kind of am, but like,
Yeah.
I was really in it, and so, but interestingly enough, it's always been sort of this, I've always had this sort of this guidance. I've always been like sort of a guide. So
Yeah.
even when I want to hang back, go with the flow, whatever, it's always like, but
No, can't
that
do that.
doesn't work. I mean,
It
yeah,
never
it's
works
funny.
out.
No, it's
Never
like
works
the
out.
self is actually fighting my the not self. It actually is work for me sometimes to be in my not self.
Yeah.
I've noticed that, which
Well,
is actually,
it wants to keep you safe. I think
yeah,
the not
but
self really wants to keep everybody safe.
it does. I think so. But I think yeah, I guess sometimes when you read things, it almost seems as though the not self is almost like the driver, like more times than not.
It is.
And right. And so in other way, like in certain ways, and like especially like a lot of the shadows of the sinners, and we're not going to get onto all that, but I'm like, oof, you're in that shadow. You're in that shadow. Like I can energetically feel me in it.
Mhm.
But in other ways, yeah, the self feels so forward. It's so forward facing. It's so like audience facing. It's like this is you.
Mm.
So yeah, I really appreciated that. And also as I've gotten into like more human design and doing readings, like it's so awesome when you hear people who obviously, they're coming to get a reading, they don't know much, and they're already living their design.
Mm.
They're like a
Mhm.
4, and they're like, yeah, I only work from referral base, or like, just I'm like, wow, that's just so. And so sometimes I feel like I'm also like that, like finding out I was a projector. I was like, well, duh. Actually, somebody told me I was a projector.
Mm.
And then,
Oh, I've done that.
and yeah,
I'm like,
somebody,
you're a
that was how I
projector.
entered it. Exactly. That's how I entered it. I was like, they were like, "Bet you're a projector." And I
Yeah.
was like, well, what are we talking about? And that was actually my intro to human
Interesting.
design.
Yeah.
But through me living as the self, like it came across so easily, like that energy just is like emanating. So for desire mode, to answer your question, yes, I've always feel like I'm handing out a life jacket, I'm being somebody's lover's rock, like Sade says, like I'm always somebody's like lover's rock, and like grounding down, like this is
Yeah.
what real life
Like
is, let me
I
tell you
went to
what I've
school for
seen.
therapy originally. I was going
Mm-hmm.
to be a child psychologist. And then I decided to go into innocence because I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to help people. I just want to make them beautiful. And I like to
Yeah.
say that innocence is like the beautiful blossom butterfly. It's a sixth color.
Mhm.
It's what we're evolving to be. So they are already
Mm.
the beautiful blossom flower that doesn't need to lead anybody. They just
Yeah.
need to be themselves.
I know, I'm so jealous.
I
Sometimes
know
I
that's
wish.
people. Innocence people do not get that we are jealous of that. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
what a relief. What a relief.
What
But
a relief.
I know
Yes.
this is a
I
burden.
I was giving a reader to a manifester with an innocence motivation. And I was like,
That's my son.
oh yeah, I was like, you just be you and you win. Just do you,
There's-
don't
yeah.
care. They had a one line as well. I'm like,
Yep,
just do you and you
so does
win.
mine.
Oh,
He's a
interesting. This is very
he's a 1-4 ego manifester. Uh
same for the
really?
reading.
Huh,
Yeah,
that's weird.
I know.
I could tell
Yeah,
them
and
some things.
I know she's
It's
fantastic.
a very interesting motivation to have as a manifester.
Hmm.
I've also read for and had a client that is a desire ego manifester. And it's very interesting to see how
Mm,
much she wants to be innocence and and wanted to sit on the sidelines where my little ego manifester, when I tell him that he's in charge, there's like this other version of him that like comes online. And I was like, oh my God, that's the transfer desire. Um,
mm,
just because he
mm.
gets this like rise out of it. But like
Oh
when
yeah.
when he's in his innocence, he's just like this beautiful little baby Buddha. I had a lot of innocence people in my last intensive, just so everybody knows. I do run an intensive. You can go check it out if you want. It's called Color Code Variables Intensive. Um, I may or may not have spots open by the time this episode is released, but go check and see if the fall round is still open. But I had a bunch of innocence people in my last one, and it was just so interesting because they really have this like Buddha energy to them. And one of them, they told me
Mm.
somebody used to call them the baby Buddha. And I was like, that's exactly the energy of innocence.
Exactly. Especially when you meet that energy with a manifester who's in the self, because their self emotion is peace, right? And
Yeah.
so
Oh yeah.
you're
No,
just
he's
this
one of the most
peaceful
peaceful people.
person. Exactly. That's how, yeah, who my client, because I know her pretty well. Yeah, and she's an Aries. And I think an Aries, when they're in the right space, like authenticity just oozes out of them.
Hmm.
And so you just see this like this peaceful, authentic, like everything just is how it is. And I was and they're like the four, just the friendliness. And like you just don't have to try. Some people are just God's favorite. That's all I'll say about it.
I do.
Some people are just God's favorite. 100%.
I do feel like I really called in a very specific soul
Mm,
into my, I guess, contract with him because
yeah.
there so in Kabbalah, I'm just gonna say something weird. I feel like we're two hanging 43s. Anytime I've ever talked about this in the past, people always want to know more about this. You could feel free to DM me on Journey Through HD on Instagram if you want. I'll be happy to give you more information. But in Kabbalah and also it's also goes back to the Jewish faith as well. If people don't know, there's a lot of Judaism in Kabbalah. So
Yeah.
when you're
It's
looking,
like that. Yeah.
it's like Jewish mysticism in short.
Hmm. For esoteric sect. Yeah.
So in in Kabbalah, they do it a little different, but it's called the mikveh. And it is actually this pool of water that it's like a spiritual dunking. And they explain it in relation to you're basically going back into the womb
Hmm.
and it's like cleansing all of you. And it's like you're back in like your birthday suit and like from the purest form from when you were born every time you do these dunkings. It's like this prayer and these dunkings that you have to do. And so when you're pregnant, they tell the pregnant woman to do mikveh every single day. And I worked at the Kabbalah Center during that time. And so I was able to do it every single day. I called in a 1-4 ego manifester, innocence motivation, the most purest soul you could ever meet. If you met him, he is like the wisest person. I just can't believe that this is my child. And I'm not just saying that because I also have a 1-3 sacral generator and he's a very different person. Okay. I only McFade with him one time. Very different.
Mm-hmm.
Very different. Both good, but different. And you can see
Both could.
they're both good, but they have their own thing going on. And but what I'm saying is that there's a purity, and I basically purified my entire being and while he was in the womb, and I got
Mm-hmm.
a freaking 6-color innocence. And like the 6 line is literally the future of our being. And that's why you guys are
Right.
known as perfection, because we are already
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Mm-hmm.
born perfect.
Right.
It is this world that tells us that we're something different, and
Exactly.
it's an evolved human.
Mm-hmm.
6 line or
Mm-hmm.
6 color, wherever you have a 6. It's an evolution.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
100%.
I really
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe it's my third line envy. I'm just like, get me off this ground floor already. How do I get off this?
How do I get
I'm
off
like the
this?
caterpillar. I'm forever the
Oh,
caterpillar, just munching on all the
so
things.
much flair though. Like a 3 line has so much flair.
I know
Like
you guys
so
just
much
like to watch our
sparkle.
messiness.
Yeah, 120%. 100. I'm not even going to
You
like
enjoy
try
it.
to lie. 100%. Honestly, I've enjoyed watching my 30 years because I'm like, bro, what's next? I mean, I can't do that forever. I'm so,
No,
yeah.
you'll
But at the
be on the
same time,
floor.
had a good time. Had a
Yeah,
great time.
it
Had a
is.
good time. And I have a lot of threes around me. And yeah, they're just out here doing their thing for the rest of it. They're just,
We're taking all the
you're
real
the
big
martyr
hits.
for
Yeah,
real.
we
Yeah,
take
you're
the
the
hits
martyr
that
for real.
the rest of the lines don't have to take.
Look, the
Okay?
six lines are taking hits for the first 30 years.
I know.
That's a real thing. And I met somebody who's a 6'3", and I was like, can you believe you basically were just running around here like a 3'3"?
Yeah.
Like for the
Like
whole
the watching
sorry, that's
people
actually tickling to me.
I know a bunch of 6 3s and 3 6s, and I got to like really look at that experience, and I'm like,
Oh,
wow,
yeah,
you
it's a friend of mine. I'm like,
yeah, I have some close people in my life, and I look back and I'm like, you were the biggest mess of life. Um,
just
and and
just
now
out
I don't
here.
know who you are. You're still a little messy. But
I
there's
mean, that three
you're
line
an
is there.
elevated mess, I guess we could say.
An elevated mess. Sure, 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 sure. An
Yeah.
enlightened mess.
It is an enlightened mess. Maybe we need to
Yeah.
name that to that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, an enlightened mess. So I want to ask you, I think I have 3 questions. Do I have 3 questions? Let me see. They're kind of 4, but 2 of them are kind of the same question. So my first question is, when did you find human design? And just like, if you can give like maybe like a 2-minute explanation of how that went for you. I know you sort of told me before we got on here, but for everyone
Right.
else.
So yeah, human design found me, I always say, because I was sitting around at this home called the Cauldron at the time. And
Yes.
yeah, they I'm from Asheville, North Carolina. Let me tell you. Or I was at
I
the
feel
Panther
is does
Palace and then
that
we went to
wait,
the
does that
Cauldron.
still exist?
It's yeah, it's people's homes. This is just people name their homes.
Okay. Okay.
And it was just like a gathering space. And the Panther Palace, we were actually at the Panther Palace, and a friend looked at me, and he was a 6'2" who was already off the roof.
Hmm.
Um, and beautiful couple, and was like, Asheville is such a projector haven. Like, for it to only be 20% of the population, I don't think I should be running into this many projectors. And sure enough, in that room, it was about 15 of us, and 11 were projectors.
Really?
Crazy times. I also think I just attract projectors. I'm into the kaleidoscope, but like 100%. But yeah, and I was like, oh, am I? And so yeah, we pulled up a quick chart thing. This was in 2020.
Okay.
Um,
Of course. That's
and
when like
so
everybody in the world and their moms found human design.
yeah, 100%, 100%. And so, and it was funny because, I was like giving them all the like astrology things because
Yeah.
I looked at him and I was like, you're either a Scorpio or a Scorpio rising because what's happening right here. And he was like, I'm a Scorpio rising. And I was like, duh. And then, but then I was like, oh, it's too cozy, Taurus. And so, yeah, I was doing all the things, my party tricks. And
I used to
he,
say that about human design, actually.
yeah, it's like, it's just a party trick. And then, so then he was like, oh, well, you know about human design, I'm assuming. And I was like, no, I don't actually. And they were like, what? And they're like, I bet you're a projector. And I was like, oh, am I? And so then they called me over to their house a few days later. I know it's 2020. We were just in
Oh,
our own world.
no,
No
no
judgment.
judgment. I don't care
No,
what
thank
you
you.
did.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you so much. And yeah, I went over and got a reading. And literally I spread it like wildfire. I had 5 friends and we made spreadsheets and
Wow.
we like, oh,
Look at the power
I
of you coming in action here.
well, actually, one of my friends who was a Scorpio at the time, she was just like has a very analytical brain. I have files in my brain. Like I remember everybody's birthday, everybody's thing all the time. That's
Oh,
actually my party trick.
mm.
And yeah, I mean, it felt, um, I really resonated with, I read something a time. It's been 4 years, so I've read a lot of things, heard a lot of things. I
Yeah.
never know where it was, but
Yeah.
I read something and, it's like basically it's like that kind of, it was framed at the time as like the evolution of astrology.
Mm.
And I still love how much it still leans into the planetary bodies and transits. And because like astrology had just been such a large part of my life. And I make profiles for people anywhere. That's what I've literally called it. I'm like, oh, that's in your profile for me. Like that's in your profile. It just clicked really, really easily. And yeah, that's how I found human design. And
Wow, that's an interesting
I
one.
yeah, that's the story.
I like to
Um,
hear people's stories because I think that there's like just like a bunch of nuggets of wisdom.
mhm,
And
mhm,
that's maybe it's my hanging 13, but I'm just
mm,
constantly collecting people's stories. And I think it's through our stories that we get to really see our evolution of self.
100%, 100%.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. That 13, I have that. So I'm
Oh,
always
yours is your conscious moon. So that's like just like your biggest
my
drive.
big, I'm telling you, and the way I can drive out, I can get anything out of anybody. I
Oh
just sit
yeah.
there and
Oh
stare at
yeah.
them.
People just want to tell us things. I mean, and I also have the hanging 59 too.
Yeah.
So people like they're like, I don't know why. And I used to do hair and they would be like,
Mm,
it was a great both gates
yeah.
to have actually for doing hair. But people are just like, even in the grocery line, they're like, I don't know. I never tell anybody this. People always start
Hmm.
this conversation with me. I never
Hmm.
tell anybody this. And then before I know it, they've told me their entire life story in 5 minutes. And I'm like, I didn't
Yeah.
know that at all. Um,
It's quite interesting. Yeah. And I think like also just Cancer, I feel like the cozy vibe. And
yeah.
honestly, what I think the secret though is actually more Aquarius moons, because like
Oh,
Aquarius placements in general. Um, because they are fixed and yet unshockable, they
oh,
like
that's so
are
freaking weird.
mini aliens. Exactly. I'm
Yeah.
like, once you really get to know me, it's funny how I like present and then people get to know me and I truly feel like I'm unzipping like
Yeah.
a meat
Virgo
suit.
and
And
Aquarius
I'm like, yeah,
got a
it's
very
like
different vibe.
I'm a total, you can't shock me. And I think people pick that up. And I think that is really, that aids to the like, this, the drawing, I feel like I'm just, and then the projector gaze. Once the
Oh
projector,
my God. I always know when there's a projector in the room. I used to do these local expos here for the last few years, where I did
we
human
miss
design.
each other.
Yeah. Human design speed readings. Okay. And so what the best was really understanding people's auras was because I had 15 to 30 minutes with these people.
Right?
They would just pop a squat at my table. I would be pulling up their chart as I'm talking to them. I knew every single time a projector sat, or really any of the auras, it doesn't matter. I just know them at this point. It's just
Hmm.
I can look at you and I'll be like, you're a projector. Or like you're a generator.
Yeah. I
Um,
can definitely do a manifester.
oh,
I
manifester.
can,
I know the manifester
manifester
because
is
I
the
think
number
they don't
one.
like me. I'm like, oh, you're a manifester
Well,
because,
they don't like it.
well, you just don't
Like
know
anybody
because we
initially.
can't
It
read
feels like
them.
it.
So I'm
Yeah.
just like, you're probably a manifester. But every time a projector would sit down, I would look at them and they would be looking at me like this. And I'm like, oh my God, like you're in you're inside of me right now. Like I like to say, you guys like to
Hmm.
try on other people's meat suits. And I just like
Oh, yeah.
I always know when you're inside. And I'm just like,
Hmm.
sometimes I don't want that, especially as because my aura is so open. And it's
Yeah.
like you climb right in.
Climb right in. Yeah. Between the projector gaze, I feel like it's the projector gaze, the Pisces glaze, and the Pisces glaze, quite literally. Projector
Yeah.
gaze and Pisces glaze. And whatever the fuck Scorpios have going on. Those
Yeah.
three eyes,
The
every
death
time I
stare.
lock in, I'm like Scorpios, obviously, it's just like,
Yeah.
I'm in your soul.
Yes.
Pisces are just glazed over. It's just I don't even know. They're just like a donut. And then
Always
like the
watery.
project, yeah, it's a Pisces glaze, 100%. And then you have the projectors that are just, it's always like, okay, which one am I looking at? Because you could be, I
Yeah.
mean, you could be both.
Yeah. You do have to
Yeah.
kind of pull a bunch of stuff apart to kind of see what's really happening there.
But it's one of those three. It's always when I'm lock eyes with somebody like that, I'm like, oof, all right, you're one of these. I know.
So when you found human design, why were you drawn to it? I'm so curious for people.
Oh, well, humans are my hobby. They have
Okay.
been for my whole
As every
life,
as every projector, just so everybody knows.
100%. Um, well, I swear, some projectors, like a 1-3 projector, sometimes I'm like, you gotta come out, you gotta know the other. Like I know some, anyways. But yeah, I remember saying that to somebody, to an old friend a long time ago. We were in college and he was like, "What are you passionate about?" I was like, "Humans." Like, and he was like, "That's not a real passion." I was like, "Yes, it is." He was like, "But what do
Yes.
you want to do with them?" And I was like, "I want to know them."
Mm.
And so yeah, I started like I found my first astrology book at a yard sale at 16. I made my mom buy it and here we are. It's the secret language of relationships. I still refer to it daily. It's incredible. That's where I get the names for like cusp of prophecy, week of unconventional. Anyways, and then I went to college. I majored in religious studies and sociology.
Oh. Mhm.
So yeah, when you're talking about the Kabbalah, I'm like, oh yeah, I've taken
Oh
a ton.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like let's keep going.
I'm
Oh,
like, that's my thing.
I can
Religion
go
is,
on.
I love religion and like people. Yeah, I just think it's all. And yeah, so and then while I was in college, I did my priestess, like a shamanic priestess cohort.
Mm.
It was like the youngest person there. And yeah, Raven Wild, and she's incredible. She still facilitates like um, journeys to Ireland. A lot of her
Oh.
like shamanistic practices are rooted in like um, Irish lore and just like Earth Center. And so I got deeper into astrology there. But I
Mm.
say all that to say all of these things have, and then numerology kind of came into the forefront while I was in college as well. And I've been living my life through life cycles since. And so human design just felt like the next progression.
Mm.
When I found it, I was like, well, okay, let's put this in our bag too and put it in our knapsack. Like any way we can
Yeah.
understand people more, the better. And for me, what really hit with human design was it truly made this intuitive knowledge feel more practical.
Yeah.
You really lose people, even, and I used to say this about, I used to do DEI work. And I would tell people that we're philosophizing so much and we're doing all of these like intellectual gymnastics when we're just talking about people. And when you stay up here as a six, I understand that when you stay up here, you lose
And
everybody
also
that's down
Aquarius
there.
moon.
Exactly. I'm like, so it's like, how can you level so you don't miss people? people don't miss your message.
Mm,
And human design is one of the first things that is like, I'm going to give you a strategy. I'm going
mm.
to give you an authority. I'm going to give you like an energetic body. And yeah, it's just been
Well, it's
a,
practical. It's a
yeah,
logical system. It's a
it's a
logical system.
logical system, and it has roots. I really appreciate the addition of the other two centers. It just makes so much sense to have a spleen, like a spleen, as a part of your energetic body. And I think as we're doing this work, and I just got my breathwork facilitator like certification, getting more into the body and taking the pressure off the head to make decisions, so my head can be this beautiful thing it's supposed to be, and it's not weighed down by jobs it was never supposed to have.
Mm.
um and yeah, just allowing my body and offering that to other people. Like, what would it look like for you to let your body get back into the driver's seat? Like, that's
Mm.
actually the wisest instrument you have.
Yeah.
Our brains can only conceptualize duality, and that you've already lost by then. You've already lost by the time you start
Well, that's why I
doing all
love
that.
the
So
variable, because you
exactly.
can see how the mind shifts
Hmm.
the other side.
Exactly. And
And we
it's
are both, but it's like I really learned how to honestly reprogram my brain or my mind
mm,
through my view variable and watching
mm,
those thought patterns for when I'm actually clearly seeing through power and when I've
hmm.
transferred to personal. Transferred personal is like
Oh, yeah, I have, yeah. Oof. That's one I have to get out of. That's,
yeah, I do a experiment in my intensive where we do a true view catchphrase and a transfer
hmm,
view catchphrase. And I found out from my last intensive that that was the most transformative experiment for all of them. For or good
mm,
majority of them, I would say. I don't know if I want to say all of them because maybe that's not true. But I remember it being the majority of them saying like this is
hmm.
where things really shifted for me. And I think that's probably people's most hung up variable because when the mind transfers, nothing is clear.
Nothing. Yeah, 100%. 100%. 100%. I I really resonate with that. I think especially on the flip, like, another thing that I really love human design for is the not self is really just our shadow. And
Mm.
so
Mhm,
when we start
mhm, mhm.
thinking with our shadow, right, it's like how much we damage our relationships, and not just our relationship to other, but our relationship to self, right? Um,
And
and
there's not, and
so
we need it
it's
though,
been great.
because it's our shadow of what can help us reveal the
Hmm.
most light.
Right,
We
exactly. And
have to
shadow's
be
not
able,
inherently
no,
bad.
we need to be able to step into the dark sometimes. And
And
we will every day.
yeah, and we exactly, the sun will set every day. And actually, I was, just reading like shadow stuff, but it's like really light is like scarce. Like, if we think about our life and the world around us, like macro, it is majority dark. Like, the sun does not reach to the bottom of the ocean. If you look out into the universe, there are, splotches of light. Even if we think about our bodies, when we close our eyes, we're engulfed in darkness.
Mhm.
So really, so much of our life is trying to run away from this dark. That's why we have all this light pollution and lamps, and it's so
Embrace the
hard for
dark,
people to go
man.
in. Yeah, it's like really we're engulfed in darkness, and we spend so much of our time trying to run away from it. But imagine if we integrate it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
human
I'm
design
right
is,
there with you because
I know, I'm like,
my son's in the 12th house, baby, and most of my planets are sitting
mm,
there too because the
yeah,
rest
you
of
say
them are
you're
all
a
Sag.
stellium.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like I
Mm,
don't I don't know anything but the dark. My 1-3. I tell everybody meet me in my basement kitchen, like
mm,
I am the light in the dark as a
yeah,
generator and a vessel of love. I will shine
yeah.
light in the dark, but we got to step into the dark first.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, luckily we have your Jupiter like guiding us there. I feel like Jupiter is just such a good
Yeah.
something to guide you to the dark. Like, it's
Yeah.
Jupiter. It's our
Yeah.
best benefit.
I agree. What most attracted you to human design when, oh wait, I guess I feel like you already answered because you said what drew you, but
Hmm.
okay. If you could say like one component that when you started learning about human design, that you're like, I'm locked in now, especially as a projector, because that's you guys lock into things. Um,
Locked in.
what locked you in the most? Like which aspect of human design you're like, I need more.
Um, it, I mean, obviously being a projector that resonated, but I think it was my brainwave channel.
Hmm.
Um, the way I like the way things come out of me where I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, I've thought this my whole life. I'm like, I've never thought that. And it'll be like one of the most not I mean, not even to sound egotistical, but like so profound. Like people always be like, "Oh, you need to write that down." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
who just said that. I don't know where that just came from." And that's it. I mean, that's just been my entire life.
And it's your
So
only channel.
it's my
I think we
only
need to also
channel.
stress that. And some people, I'm curious to how you like what your thoughts were when you found out you only had one channel. Most clients that I've worked with that they only have one channel, they have a
Mhm.
really bad reaction to that they only have one channel. And I tell people, actually, it's easier.
Yeah, I think so.
If because all you have to do is learn exactly how that one channel operates to a T and you're
Yes.
gold.
I That's how I feel. I got my first I remember when I got, well, not my first human design reading, but one of the human design readings that I got. Um and I liked I mean, even as a reader now, like an analyst now, like I feel like the not the funnest part, because the funnest part is getting into it, but I love the moment of first looking at somebody's chart. And
Mm,
I love the moment when somebody first views my chart, right? Because everybody has their own lens to digest things. And so you start running through it. And I remember one of the readings, as soon as he opened up my chart, he was like, "So how do you feel about all this openness?" And he's like, "You have one channel, you have one thing to do." Like, and honestly, like, make it easy. Like, I know I'm already dealing with the fact that I can't be innocence motivation. So at least give me something sort of easy. And I feel like the brainwave is just something I've been doing like my whole life. It just is so, yeah, I
okay.
think it's just, it's so interesting how, like, what that feels like. And I'm such an intuitive person in general. So being splenic and, um, yeah, it's interesting. I don't resonate with the fear portion of like being splenic as much. We won't go into that. But yeah,
Okay.
the being splenic and
Interesting.
being splenic and the brainwave, that really locked something in because it felt like a secret that it knew.
Hmm. How do you feel about, okay, so you said you don't resonate to fear. So then when you found out that gate 57 is the fear of the future,
Hmm.
what is your experience or thoughts on that?
I think, let me sit in it. Fear of the future. I can't say that I think I have that when I think super hard about it. Like death trips me out every time. I don't know if we're thinking that far in the future. When I think about death, sometimes I'm almost
Well,
like
you
in a
have
panic
the other
attack.
side of death. You have the gate of the fighter. The fear of
Right?
death is gate 28, and then you have
Yeah, I
the
have the.
38. So
Let me
you
tell you.
probably, you know, hold on a second.
Okay, she said.
My one of my kids, well, actually, no, I take that back. Both of my kids have
Okay,
gate 38 because they're both cross of tension because I did that to myself. But
love that.
but that holds gate 38. And so my manifester is also a first line and also survival view. And
Mm,
so he has this weird, I want to say more of a fixation with the fear of death. Um, and I think it's because of the openness from the 28 and only
mm.
having the 38 that it's something that probably comes up throughout your
I
experience.
could see that. I mean, I have. Yeah, I'm just sometimes it's not a fear though. Sometimes it's like a fascination or curiosity. I'm
Yeah,
like,
there's a
wow,
fixation. There's a fixation.
yeah, yeah. I had a breathwork ceremony once, and it took me to the edge of the universe, and I was sitting with a Grim Reaper, and it was
Huh.
like the most peaceful I've ever felt. And I was like, what am I? This is some weird shit. But
Yeah.
here I am in this like weird vision. But yeah, fear, I think because, and I've always sort of been like this, I kind of live in the now. If I'm
As
not a
you
very,
should, as Splenic.
yeah, exactly. And I'm not a very anxious person. I'm a very nostalgic person.
Hmm.
But that doesn't come with fear. That comes with like regret and that bitterness and all of that.
Hmm.
But anxiety has never been something I've like dealt with too hard because I'm either here or I'm in the past. Like
Hmm.
whatever the future will bring, I'll just greet that when I get there, you know? So
Yeah, I feel like people that have the full channel,
yeah,
it's
I think
not,
it's something about that.
it's just something that's innately like working through you, that it's not really a thought. It's,
Yeah. I
but I
almost
was,
feel like open spleens have a little bit more of
well,
that. Like
they're worried about everything and nothing at the same time. They're scared of everything,
they kind of
scared of
stress me out.
everything and nothing at the same time. It's the most fascinating thing to me, also having a defined spleen.
I can tell an undefined spleen. Now
Oh
that is
yeah.
one pattern I've tapped into. I can
Yeah.
look at somebody and tell they're undefined. It's
Yes.
very interesting. I'm like, oof, that spleen, you're missing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting.
yeah, but the fear hasn't, and God willing, it never does. You know, I don't know what it'll be like if I have a child or something, and
Oh yeah.
maybe that'll ignite that little thing of like anxiety. But yeah, I don't have that too much.
That's
I'm
nice.
very much
Well,
a
you're
past
also,
dweller.
well, I think that's also an
That Cancer.
Aquarius moon thing too. You
Mm.
just, it's, you're just in constantly intellectualizing everything.
That
Oh,
everything, and the Cancer sun is like I'm dwelling in the past. Like I'm
mm,
sentimental. I'm nostalgic.
yeah.
I have that
So is my little
individual.
Cancer son. Oh God.
Ah,
Yeah. Yeah. He's
the
the,
eye closed. Yeah.
oh my God. Just thinking about it. I can't tell him when I'm getting rid of something. I just have to get rid of
Hmm.
it. If he knows that I'm getting rid of it, then all of a sudden he wants it. I'm like, your ego does not really want this. Okay. It's just because I'm telling you it's going away. And all of
Yeah,
a sudden
that
you're being
hoarder
kept.
quality comes
Yeah.
out.
I think he has the 40, 45, 21.
I was gonna
I think
say, does yeah,
there's a hoarding with that 21.
yeah, and they just
So
yeah, just trying
collecting
to
the
fill ourselves
resources. If
up.
you saw all the raw lectures that I have, I actually have a lot of pride of myself with how many lectures I have gotten over the years. But
Hmm.
it's hoard. I am hoarding, but I share them with my clients because there are lectures that I feel like between Jovian Archive and um what's it called, Human Design America, because that's also where I get a lot of my lectures from.
Hmm.
They don't, not everything stays forever. And you got to,
Yeah,
if it's there, you got to get it. So
yeah, I
that's
do
been
believe
my,
that. I do believe that. So
yeah.
crazy how recent human design is. That's how I feel like that's also how you know um its validity is how new it is and how quickly it's like caught on. I mean, it's still kind of niche, don't get me wrong. I'm definitely on the street talking to people and they're like, human design, what? Or they're like,
Yeah.
I
Most
heard I
people
was a
don't know.
Jenna Ray. I don't know, you know, and
Yeah.
obviously the circles you travel in, but it is still very niche. Like I've talked to
Yes.
people and they're like a lot of people and they have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Um, but still, I think there's something to be noted about even how much it has spread,
Hmm.
even with the folks that don't know it, and for you know how relatively new it is. Like it's up here with some like super ancient wisdom, you know, and it's just as valid, you know, and really taking us to like the next step. I feel like,
Yeah. I agree.
yeah,
So let's take the last step because I have one last question for you.
one
And
more. Okay,
this is my closeout question. I'm going to ask everybody this according to their aura. So I want to, because I want you to speak directly to the projectors right now. Okay.
all
So
right.
what would you tell a projector about their aura if you could tell them anything?
Mm. It's your superpower.
Hmm.
Our like the ability to penetrate. is, especially in a world where people are operating out of so many masks,
Mhm.
whether it's via social media, whether it's, social, like the fatigue that people have that when they go out and they feel like they have to have this performance because there's always a camera around,
Ooh,
um,
yeah,
whether
undefeated ego.
it's
Yeah.
okay, or it's like whether you're in relationship with someone and there's just like boundaries that they're trying to put up or manipulate, like it's your superpower. And I
Mm,
think the more you recognize that, the more you recognize that quality within yourself. And typically it takes turning your aura into yourself.
mm.
Like
Well, you have to recognize
to
yourself first.
yeah, to see how potent it is. And then you're like, oh, I really got something going on here. And then you take it out and you project it out into the world. And yeah, it's your superpower. But you will not be able to access it. Um, and you will not be able to be recognized for it unless you first see that within yourself.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
mm,
It always comes back to that. It's like the number, whenever I read for a projector first, I say
mhm.
the invitation and the recognition is going to start with you recognizing your first and foremost.
Yeah, that's
That's
this
it.
that's it. And it's like you don't need an invitation to educate yourself. You don't need an
Oh.
education. You don't need an invitation to dive deeper into any modality that you feel will help you gain your footing in this plane to be able to have some sort of value and worth that you belong here, and that what you have is special and unique and useful. Yeah, so you don't need an invitation for that. Dive into you.
What draws you
And
in? What system do you want to
I was
dabble
like, get niche. Your niche is your thing.
in? Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what I have to say, especially if you're a two,
Mhm.
because the deeper you get into your bag, the more people will just feel it and be like, "Hey, come here.
Yeah.
Tell me what you're playing with." And especially if you have your son in the 11th house, you're
We're
here for
speaking
the.
directly to a specific group of people.
I really, because there's certain people that are supposed to be illuminators,
Mhm.
and I think a lot of that is projectors, but yeah, there's just certain people in general, and like but projectors, of course, so they fall into that. You are here to illuminate. You are a luminary in your own path, and you just have to see that light first.
Hmm.
So,
That's beautiful. Well, thank
mm.
you. I'm sure you've really led a bunch of projectors on this journey today because
I hope so.
you guys you guys need a little guidance too, and you guys can really
Yeah,
guide each other.
so powerful. It's like, and yeah, I reckon an embodied projector is such a
Mhm.
force, and not a force because they use force. They're a force because they know the other. And that's really what it is.
Mm.
It's like when you
Yes.
can look so deep into somebody. I always say that when you can look so deep into somebody else that you see yourself, you
Mm.
automatically unlock grace, you unlock understanding, and that was what makes you a good leader.
Mm. All right,
Like,
that's a soundbite right there. Um, well, thank you. Well, I mean, I feel like your channel just like came online right there at the end, like so potent with that brainwave
mhm,
there. Because that was the
thank
brainwave, just like, let me let me
it's
spit some
speaking.
let me spit some truth with my 20 for a second, okay?
Let me tell you something.
Yeah, let me tell you something. I'm so
Yeah.
jealous of the 20.
Mm.
Because I have the 1034 and I just
Oh,
like
the
it's
10.
like if
I'm so
I
jealous of the 10.
yeah,
I want
everybody
that gauge
honestly,
so bad.
honestly, everybody should have I mean,
Everybody should.
everybody needs it activated 24/7
I
because
was going to say 24/7.
we would all act a little different and,
Yeah,
and be ourselves more.
I know. I'm really, that's the only gate actually in the entire body graph that I have attached some envy
Well,
to that I don't have. That's the only one.
that is the gate that actually sets the foundation of the entire body graph.
Entire, exactly. It's our self, like, it's the only one. I don't even need the center to be defined. Just give me gate 10.
Mm,
It's interesting when I see people who don't have the G center defined and they have gate 10, it's still it's different. Like obviously,
mm.
yes, that conditioning, but I can tell a gate 10. There's it's different.
Yeah. Yeah. It's my
Yeah.
conscious sun.
Oh, you
Oh,
lucky duck. That's also how,
yeah.
yeah. You're just that's a good thing. You're doing, and like, of course, Sagittarius are like our luckiest, zodiac
Mhm.
sign,
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
Jupiter ruled. And it's like, of
Mhm.
course, they would be the ones that would
The gate
have
10.
the
Mm-hmm.
gate 10.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
basic there. That's just
No.
a W.
No.
Take
Yeah.
your W, run away. just latch it and go.
Yeah, I do. That's probably my favorite gate in the body graph. Just not
Yeah.
because it's my conscious sun, but because it literally, I maybe it's the 1-3 in me that it's the foundation of the core of us.
Yeah,
So,
no, it's a beautiful game, especially when people have 10-20. I'm like, oof, look at you. Wow.
yeah, I have a client that had
Hmm.
10-20. Yeah, they don't know the
Yeah.
power with that gate.
Beyonce has 10-20.
Oh, does she?
She does. Sorry.
I should look
It's
at her
Virgo
chart one day.
season. It's
I know
Virgo season.
she's a manifesting generator.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
Jay-Z's a projector.
No surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. They're doing
Yeah.
their thing. They're doing their
Yeah.
thing.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. I love celebrity charts. I also have,
Hmm.
just so everybody knows, I also do true crime human design, where it's not only true crime with serial killers, but also problematic public figures. And
Oh.
I have two problematic public figures that I actually want to, that's I think the next one I'm going to do. So, um, no, it's not political. I just need to say it's not
Look,
political.
everybody's
Just
like,
because
is
we're
it?
in a political climate, I have an open solar plexus. I can't do that to myself.
Yeah.
Um, but come back for some more stuff. Definitely, Krystle, let everybody know how they can find you before we get off here.
Yeah, I am the Crystalverse on Instagram. I am also the Crystalverse on Twitter. I am also the Crystalverse on YouTube.
Hmm.
So yeah, and I'm the Crystalverse on Substack. I am branding the Crystalverse.
I
That's
like
who I
that.
am. Yeah. And so type that in and you'll be sure to find something will pop up.
Awesome. Okay. And also
Yeah.
I'll put it down in the show notes as well for everybody.
Yeah. Thank
So
you
yeah.
so much.
Yeah. I want to make sure
And
everybody feels seen. So yeah, we had to sing that little
yeah.
generator to sing at the end. I like to sing. My open throat.
Like to be seen. I know,
Yeah.
yeah, the open road.
Yeah.
Typically it's associated with nice singing.
Celine Dion, I think, she's a projector, I think, with a wide open throat.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I know honestly the openness. I've noticed like a lot of our biggest figures, like celebrity status, have a lot of openness in their charts.
Mm.
And they're able to transmute
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or they just stay conditioned and burn out. One of the two, like,
Yeah, those are the options.
sink or swim.
Sink or swim. Well,
Yeah.
only swimming on here, guys, and standing on our actual foundation of our boards. We're on the top. We're on the
Look
top.
at
We're not
yeah.
power view. We're on the top. Okay.
Power view.
So power view for the win. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Please come back for more because there are more to this series. We're going to go through all the types. So I have no idea how this is going to go out, but just know it's going to be good. So I will see you guys over on the next one. Bye.